Hey, welcome to the Physical Embodiment Studio. I'm Courtney Sprawls, certified personal trainer, and today I wanted to talk to you about 5 variations of squats that I like to incorporate into my training routines for myself and for my clients. There are, of course, different variations and different ways you can do this depending on the prop. So I'm going to talk to you about it based on dumbbells and barbells in particular. And of course, you're welcome to do these moves by the weight as well. So we'll start with a back squat. Whenever you're at a barbell, typically you can handle the weight on your back. So when you're setting up for a barbell back squat, I want you to think of using your traps rather than your neck to support the bar. So you'll keep the bar on your traps to support. Some people do it a little bit lower. I don't have the range of motion in my body to do that, in particular in my shoulders. So I like to set it about here on my back, right on the traps and shoulders. From there, you'll bring your hands just a little wider than your shoulders, tucking the elbows under, keeping the core tight. So when we get into it, we'll bring our feet about hip distance. For me, I like to go a little bit wider than my hips. I'll show you from the side. So a little bit wider than the hips, the bar is on my back, pulling the elbows under, core locked in. Send your hips directly back, keeping the back of your spine long, including the back of your neck. So try and avoid kinking your neck and looking up. Keep your focus down on the floor and forward, quite a bit in front of you. And then exhale, push the ground away, active through the core. Now, I want you to be mindful of the butt length. When you get to the bottom of your movement, sometimes the spine will curve under and put flexion on the lumbar spine. I want you to avoid that from happening so we can keep the integrity of the muscles without compromising the spinal alignment when you lower. Exhale, push the ground away. Now, a back squat is really great for your quads and your glutes in particular, and of course the hamstrings get hit as well. This one in particular with the weight on the back of you is forcing you to use the quads and the glutes pretty evenly, whereas with the front squat, when we bring the weight in front of you, the quads are a little bit more dominant. So I really like a back squat because it's classic. You're using a lot of the bigger muscles to support you in your lift, and you typically can handle a bit more weight as you can for, say, a front squat. So let's talk about the front squat. Same muscles are worked, quads, glutes, hamstrings. However, it is a bit more quad dominant, typically because the stance is more narrow and the weight is in the front of you now. So if you think of this being a barbell, the weight is at your collarbones, and you can either bring the elbows up and support the weight on your collarbones and your shoulders, thinking about it resting on your shoulders rather than levitating in the sky with the support of your wrist, right? I want you to really rest it here. Now, if you don't have proper range of motion for this, then typically switching to kind of like a coffin position can be helpful. So when you're setting up for a front squat, you'll grab the bar, rest it on your shoulders, elbows are lifted. When you sit your butt down and back, you're trying to keep your core and your upper body pretty upright without hinging too far forward. If you are going to have the weight in front, it's easy to collapse forward. So really stabilizing through the front body is key in that lift. I like to use dumbbells rather than a barbell for a front squat. So you can bring the weight to your collarbones or even rest them on your shoulders when you get into this front squat. Because the weight is in front of you, it is more quad dominant. From there, we'll talk about sumo squats. I like to use kettlebells or dumbbells for a sumo squat. In particular, a heavier single dumbbell is my favorite way. They'll bring it to your hips, resting your feet on the floor, lifting through the arches. Now your feet are a bit wider, heels in, toes out just slightly, so that when you drop down, your knees are in line with your ankles and your second toe, and your spine stays long. And then when you lift, you can really engage your inner thighs and outer thighs, activating through the glutes at the top. So keep your heart open, zip through the center line, squeeze into the adductors, engage through the outer thighs as well. So I like to imagine I'm pulling the carpet in towards each other whenever I'm bringing my heels in towards each other, like pulling into the floor, whatever's on your floor, whether carpet or mat. You're pulling your feet together to lift, zipping through the center line, keeping your heart really proud. So from the side, heels in, toes out, sit your butt back, keep your spine long. As I lift, I'm pulling the ground in towards each other, squeezing in the glutes, active through the core, open through the chest. Okay, so that's a sumo squat, primarily in the inner and outer thighs, and then a little bit of the outer glute. Then we're talking overhead squat. I personally don't incorporate this into my routine too much because my bone mobility is lacking a little bit. That's actually a good reason to practice it. because it does require a lot of shoulder stability and lat mobility. So when we talk about an overhead press, again, your quads, glutes are definitely working in this, but your shoulders and core are having to work a little harder to stabilize the bar or piece of equipment you choose. So for an overhead press, this bar, I was gonna say stick, but this is no weight. The barbell is lifted up overhead. Your biceps are by your ears, your core's locked in, and your rib cage is in line with your hips. So trying to avoid sticking your butt out, pull your hips underneath your rib cage. Now we'll try and keep the integrity of the spine as you send your hips back, keeping your core tight, arms stay up overhead, exhale, push the ground away, active through the full center body. So inhale, lengthen your hips back, keep your spine long, exhale, lift up and through. Now mine is not perfect by any means, again, mobility issues, but if you'd like to incorporate that in your routine, it's a really great exercise to strengthen the shoulders, the core, and the legs. Now, Bulgarian split squats are next. I love Bulgarian split squat. They're great for hamstring, glute development for one variation, which I'll show you. And then if you're more upright, it's more quad. So if you have a surface that's about knee height, this would be perfect. You're going to set up by sitting down on the platform, extend one leg straight. That is where you're going to ground your foot. So you'll press your foot into the floor, send your opposite leg back. Now, two variations I'll share with you today. The first one being shoulders over hips, so that when you lower down into your split squat, you are feeling the lengthening of the quad, the activity through the core, your heart stays really proud, and then you push the ground away. Getting a lot of quad work here, and for some glute hamstrings, but primarily in the quads, and a nice stretch in that other hip flexor. Now, variation number two is when you hinge forward, keeping your spine really long and dropping down in that same way, but now I'm feeling the hamstring and glute as I lift. So sometimes I like to use dumbbells. You could use a barbell, but I would do more upright if you're gonna use a barbell. Otherwise, dumbbells are by your side, open through your chest, push the ground away, really targeting that hamstring and glute on that front leg, and then of course, switch. If you have any questions about squat variations, those are my 5 favorite. My name is Courtney Sprawls, certified personal trainer. This is Physical Embodiment Studio. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.